The next composer, which we're going to talk about, is W.H. Reid, known to his friends as Billy. He was born in Frome in 1875 and was quite an important violinist of his day. In fact, he was the concertmaster of the London Symphony Orchestra. He was actually a real discovery for me. In the process of preparing for this documentary, I discovered the Rhapsody for Viola and Piano, which is a wonderful piece. And in fact, I would like to read you a short quote from the review in the Strad that was written after the premiere. A good solo written with a knowledge of the viola and with thematic material well worked out. The andantino which follows a broad allegro is very musical, and there is striking technical development in the finale. Of course, like so many of these other pieces, this was written for the eminent Lionel Tertis, and the premiere took place in 1927. And we will like to play this work in its entirety a little bit later. But first I'd like to tell you a little more about Billy Reid. He's actually most well known these days for being Elgar's biographer. And in fact, Elgar came across Billy by chance in 1910 and requested his assistance with writing the great violin concerto in B minor. And they remained lifelong friends. And it seems that Billy was absolutely fascinated with Elgar and adored him. Unfortunately, the orchestration of this Rhapsody has been completely lost except the first 4 pages. However, it has been reconstructed, and the winner of the next Cecil Aronowitz viola competition will perform the Rhapsody in its entirety with a brand new completed orchestration. Lionel Tertis. By now you've heard his name mentioned a few times during this documentary, and I feel we really ought to tell you a bit more about him, because he was really a phenomenal man and really at the centre of the development of the viola, definitely here in Britain, but internationally. His achievements resounded in the musical community. And before I tell you more about Tertis, first I'd like to tell you what he said himself in a letter to a patron, Mrs. Coolidge, after premiering the Reid Rhapsody. Tertis reported, "I played a new work last Monday by W.H. Reid with the London Symphony Orchestra at the Queen's Hall, and everyone raved about my viola. It certainly has improved out of all recognition, and I would like you to hear it. Its tone is mellow and enormous." Tertis was born in 1876 in West Hartlepool. He was the son of immigrants, but the family moved to Spitalfields in East London, where when he was just a very small child. And he began playing the piano as a kid, and in fact got his first job as a pianist as a teenager, accompanying a blind travelling violinist. He really wanted to play the violin, so he managed finally to get violin lessons just at the age of 16, once he had saved some money from his piano playing. And then he went on to study, and he did some studies in London at Trinity College of Music, and then he went to Germany where he thought he would get better music tuition, and ended up coming back to the Royal Academy of Music in London, which is where he actually took up the viola for the first time, because a friend needed a violist for a string quartet and said, "Lionel, why don't you play the viola?" So he took up the viola, and it was really a kind of love at first sight, and became, as he described it, the love and tyrant of his life for the next 80 years. He was a remarkable man who lived to the age of 99. He died in 1975 and retired 3 times. It was really a remarkable career, and I'll touch again on his input a lot of times. But first I wanted to read a quote from his own biography about what he said of the genesis of the viola in Britain. "A little old man, said to be a professional viola player, was engaged by the Academy to take part twice a week in the orchestral practices. What a player he was! He used a very small instrument, not worthy of the name viola, and he produced from it as ugly a sound as a fiddle ever emitted, a bone-dry, absolutely devoid of vibrato, which made one's hair stand on end. I once inquired of Sir Alexander, could we not dispose with this horrible player? His reply was, no, he is a necessary evil. Tertis was a remarkably busy man who occupied himself with all sorts of things. He liked to compose, and in fact he was on the panel of forming the first ever BBC Symphony Orchestra. He also really wanted to help the development of the viola in whatever way he could, and he was rather frustrated with the low standard of instruments which were being produced. So definitely for the later years, after he had stopped really performing fully in public, he occupied all of his spare time with making a better, more affordable model of viola with a deeper, richer, more sonorous sound. So he kind of invented the Tertis model viola with a few different luthiers, but firstly, I think with Richardson. And a lot of these violas are still around today. And it was really his goal that future violists would have access to high quality instruments with a good sound. And really, he actually opened the question of different sizes and shapes of viola, and really pushed the boundaries with that. So following a lifetime of service, being an international soloist, being a composer, being a developer of violas, being actually developing the animal which is the symphony orchestra, he died on the 22nd of February in 1975. And shortly after his death, 5 years later, the Lionel Tertis competition was set up, which has since become one of the biggest events in the calendar of viola festivals, and is a real celebration of his life and his contributions to the instrument. So, to celebrate this great man, Lionel Tertis, we would like to play you a short composition of his called Hier au soir, which translates as Yesterday in the Evening. Frank Bridge, who was born in 1879 in Brighton, and is a composer who Lionel Tertis was extremely fond of. Bridge himself was a viola player, being the first violist of the English string quartet. He was another student at the Royal College of Music and also studied with Charles Stanford, and he wrote quite a lot for the viola. In fact, in 1912, he wrote a Lament and Caprice for two violas, which was performed together with none other than Lionel Tertis. And whilst the Caprice was never published, the Lament has become a kind of staple piece for all of those gatherings where two violas are involved, and is a piece that I'm very fond of. He also wrote a Pensiero and Allegro Appassionato, which are both beautiful pieces for viola and piano. He actually wrote 3 songs for medium voice, viola and piano called Far, Far From Each Other, Where Is It That Our Soul Doth Go, and Music When Soft Voices Die. He also wrote sketches for a viola sonata in 1935. However, sadly, these were never completed and never took the form of a full work. One of the short pieces that he wrote is called Allegretto, and that's the piece that we'd like to play for you today. It seems to be from around 1904, although the exact date isn't known. And unfortunately, just the coda at the end wasn't fully completed, so the version we're going to play for you is a completion by Paul Hindmarsh, which was published in 1980. John Ireland was born in Bowden, near Manchester, in August 1879, the same year as Frank Bridge, and he entered the Royal College of Music at the age of 14, studying piano, organ and composition. He studied composition under Stanford, and in fact I'd like to read you the list of just a few of the composers he taught at the Royal College of Music. Vaughan Williams, Holst, Bridge, Arthur Bliss, Herbert Howells, George Butterworth, and many others. Ireland sadly destroyed nearly all of his student works, but he came to prominence around the end of the First World War and became a celebrated composer. Actually, it was his second violin sonata that brought him more or less overnight fame. Of course, Lionel Tertis followed by making an arrangement, a transcription of the second violin sonata, and performed it with the composer at the piano. In fact, this became a regular addition to his recital programs, and he performed it throughout his career. There's also a version of the first violin sonata, which was arranged by Martin Outram, who was actually one of my teachers. It was the winner of the 1909 Cobbett chamber music competition. And so it's quite an important piece. We'd like to play for you today a short piece by Ireland, which is actually an arrangement by Lionel Tertis. It's called The Holy Boy and was originally one of his 4 preludes for piano. But Ireland actually arranged this piece several times himself for voice and piano, also for string orchestra, and there's also other versions. This version, which we are playing for you today, dates back to 1925.